So this is a little different. I was organizing my YouTube channel the other day when I saw this one discussion requesting that I review Digimon Season 4. Now I've done the reviews to Seasons 1, 2, and 3 at this point, and I hope to do an actual review of Season 4 at some point, but it takes a lot of editing, and I've got a lot going on right now. I mean, the trans thing and the game and a whole lot of other stuff. So I figure I'll make this little video as a way to try to tide it over. So, Digimon Season 4, also known as Digimon Frontier. So it's been a little while, but from what I remember, I usually start off with my personal experience, like how I got to the show at this point. So with Seasons 1 and 2, I do have very rough memories of watching them when they first came out. A lot more of Season 1 than a lot more of Season 2, but there is maybe some nostalgia there, but not a whole lot. Season 3 onward, I only ever saw for the first time as an adult, and not that many years ago, actually. Let me think. So, Seasons 1, 2, and 3, I know they were all on Netflix. I believe it was about 2012, 2013. It was just Seasons 1 and 2 for a while, followed by Season 3 the next year. I remember I wanted to wait a year in order for Season 4 to come out on Netflix, but unfortunately that never happened. However, Season 4 ended up being on Hulu, which, just as a general thing, I don't really like Hulu that much. You see, you have to pay for Hulu, yet you get ads. And also at that time, Hulu's player was not nearly as stable as Netflix's, so oftentimes you would just kind of have like a face here, but yet it would be talking over here, or something like that. There would just be weird distortions everywhere. So I decided to try to watch the first episode of Season 4, and I just could not get past the ads as well as the low quality videos. So I waited like a few more months in order for it to maybe come on to Netflix. However, that didn't happen. So I bit the bullet, as they say, and I watched it on Hulu. After about like the first 10 episodes or so, I got used to Hulu's poor quality, but I really was holding out that it would ever come on the Netflix. After finishing Season 4, I then bought this DVD collection because not only is the picture a lot more stable, but you have no ads, and on top of that, you get like this nice little manual here. It has like concept arts and a lot of other fun little things that I like. So that is my personal experience from Season 4. From memory, I'm going to try my best to summarize it and review as well as I can. It's maybe been like a year or two since I last seen Digimon Frontier, but we'll see where this goes. Okay. So from what I remember, at the very beginning we focus on our main character, Takuya, who is waiting anxiously for his little brother's birthday party. And all of a sudden, a mysterious phone call comes up saying to be at the train station in less than an hour. At first he's a little hesitant because, well, you hear a mysterious voice saying, hey, you should go do something, you're going to be a little reluctant. But after some time, he goes for it. And there's quite a few exciting scenes here as Takuya is trying his best to make it into the train station. He nearly gets hit by a truck at one point, and I love how the truck driver is just like, hey kid, are you okay? And Takuya's just like, what time is it? I need to know. And the driver's just like, it's this time. I almost killed you. Are you okay? But then Takuya's just off and he's right to the train station. The voice then comes again to say, go into the elevator, and there they will go down to the ground floor. He just barely makes it. And he also meets this mysterious person who we'll later know as Koji. When Takuya makes it down to the elevator, there are, I want to say maybe like 5, 6 trains or so. So, seeing that Takuya is running late beyond belief, he goes to the closest train. In fact, he even has to run after it because he's running so late. But all the same, Takuya makes it into the train. Inside, he meets a few other passengers. Zoe, a blonde, I want to say teenager, it's hard to say in anime, who speaks Italian for some reason. That kind of character arc just kind of goes in and out throughout the season. We also have JP, who is a really big kid who always has snacks all the time. In fact, I think he's eating a candy bar as he's on the train right now. And then finally we have Tommy, a bit of a wimpy kid who was actually forced on there by bullies. So, as the train goes along, they start to realize that it's no ordinary train, but it's a Trailmon. It's essentially a Digimon that goes on rails, or a train. As the train goes on and on, they start to realize that the world is starting to change, and then all of a sudden, they're in the digital world. There is a bit of a shock, and all of a sudden we see a brief glimpse as to what each of the Digidestined's Digimon forms would look like. Here's a bit of a tangent. So when I heard that Season 4, the Digidestined were going to become the Digimon, I thought it was going to be more like how in Shrek 2, how Shrek blacks out and then he immediately wakes up to find that he's human. I kind of thought maybe they're going to go for a similar route here, where each of the Digidestined would somehow black out, and then they'd wake up as a Digimon. And then they'd have to figure out how to adjust to this new body, how it attacks, as well as a lot of other fun little gags you can have in there. So I was slightly disappointed by that, but I kept going. In fact, I feel like if they're going to be making more Digimon seasons, I feel like that could be a very interesting concept for the next one. Make it happen. So they all make it to the train station, where the Trailmon leaves them behind, stuck in the digital world. Now at this point, there are two Digimon that they meet. I'm gonna need to look up their names, because I forget what they're called. At least I think they'd be. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so Bokumon and Nemon. Bokumon is essentially the keeper of the books, and Nemon, I feel, has Brock's eyes. Or maybe it's just me. He's kind of the comedy relief character. One of the main gags is usually Bokumon likes to pull on his shorts and then snap the waistband. Just kind of a quirky Japanese sense of humor there, I guess. So as Bokumon is explaining the ins and outs of the digital world, a rogue Digimon appears known as Suburamon, I believe. During the struggle, Takuya tries to take charge when all of a sudden there is like this little statue thing. This eventually allows Takuya to digivolve into... I'm really drawing a blank here. What's his name again? Maybe I should just keep this manual out. It'd probably be a lot easier, wouldn't it? Let's see. Agunimon. I have a feeling I'm probably going to have to say that a few times at least. So once Takuya digivolves into Agunimon, he's able to defeat Suburamon. And then that's the end of the first episode, I believe. Some of the minor details kind of escape me, but the basic idea is that I believe they have to go to Shibuya Station, or Forest Station. Anyway, the main group has to go to the station, and along the way, each one of them gets their own... Now, along the way, there is actually some mythos building in this season. The basic concept in a time before time... Wait, that's Bionicle. Okay, in ancient times, you had the beast-like Digimon and the more human-like Digimon. These factions did not get together, and they were involved in a very epic clash with each other. The only way to settle this fighting was by the 10 legendary warriors, which had a human form as well as a beast form as well. Them combined with 3 celestial Digimon. You had Ophanimon, Seraphimon, and Cherubimon. All of them were able to stop the fighting and reunite the Digimon. Now, something happened to Cherubimon. It seemed like he not only had a thirst for power, but he also became corrupted in some way. And now all the rogue Digimon are under his command so that he can rule the digital world all by himself. Eventually, this mysterious character from the elevator, Koji, joins into the main group, and then they all proceed into the station. There are a few little gags in this season that really took me by surprise. Probably the first one is I remember the gang all had to climb up a rope. So JP, trying to be the nice guy, basically says, "All right, Zoe, you go first." And I love how she's just like, "I'm wearing a skirt." And JP's just like, Even I had to think about that gag for a little bit, and I'm just like, you put that in a kid's show? That's a bit suggestive, isn't it? Now there's this other scene that I also find pretty memorable. So you have JP and Zoe are the last to find their spirits. In this one, we actually see Zoe's spirit. Now, I love the idea that JP kind of jumps after it. I kind of think in the back of my mind, wouldn't it have been funny if, say, JP actually became Kazumon here? So then that way she would be endowed with these fantastic powers, but he had to do it running around looking like this. I just think that would have been hilarious, and I feel like it's probably something that's been done in other anime before. But whatever. I mean, JP ended up with his own Digimon known as Beetlemon. Since I have a picture, I might as well show you. Yeah, you got like a big, fierce warrior type. So I know for sure that they make it into the station, alright. There's a lot of detours along the way. And then I think at this point the voice says that now that they've all recovered their human spirits, they also have beast spirits. Which, it's just to say right now, my favorite Digimon design has to be Burning Greymon, which is Takuya's beast spirit. Might as well just show you the picture. I feel like this picture doesn't do it justice, but in all honesty, I think this is the best design of any Digimon in all the seasons I've seen. Now, the problem with the beast spirits is that even though they wield immense power, they make the user just as beastly. So the first two to get their beasts would be Koji and Takuya. Koji is somewhat able to keep his mind, but he is unable to wield the intense power. He's able to kind of fire off a few shots, but he's unable to keep himself stable. Now when Takuya finds his beast spirit, he's basically possessed, and all the other ones are trying to stop him while he's just on a rampage trying to kill everyone. Oh yeah, that reminds me of another point I forgot to mention. So I said that there were 10 legendary warriors. So you got Takuya's spirit, Tami's spirit, JP's spirit, and Koji's spirit. However, that leaves 6 other spirits. The first one to appear is known as Grumblemon, which for me, I was a little disappointed that it just actually is the spirit rather than some kid that got corrupted. I thought that would have been amazing. Well, we kind of went through that plot later, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. So there was Grumblemon, there was Mercurymon. I forget what the other one is, but he's basically just like a ripoff of Sylvester Stallone for the most part. And you have Ranamon, not to be confused with Renamon, because it's just one stinking letter. Oh yeah, and there was also Duskmon, which is probably the most powerful out of all of them. This is where the details start to get a little fuzzy. I remember Seraphimon. He was in a castle of crystal, I believe. And the main thing is that he was frozen, so to speak, guarded by Ice Wizardmon, I believe. The Digidestined all try to free Seraphimon, since he's one of the 3 celestial beings, and hopefully he can help them defeat Cherubimon. However, the other spirits, you have Mercurymon and Ranamon, because I believe at that point they defeated Grumblemon already, are there in order to take Seraphimon out, which, in a stunning turn of events, they succeed. However, Bokumon is able to save the egg, which hopefully will hatch back into Seraphimon one day. They are able to escape, but just barely. And then after that, the voice calls again. And here we realize that the voice is actually of Ophanimon. She is being held captured at what is known as the Rose Morning Star. The Rose Morning Star is essentially Cherubimon's hideout, where there is a lot of corruption going on, but there is this one goat-like Digimon which is able to send them all the way up to Ophanimon. They have a very hard time trying to free her, and while they're trying to do this, Cherubimon comes in to try to stop them. However, Ophanimon tries her best to heal the corruption within Cherubimon. It works for about 10 seconds, when all of a sudden he reverts back, and you realize that she zapped part of his power away. Enraged, Cherubimon, I want to say, kills Ophanimon. Now at this point, all of the spirits are in the possession of the Digidestined. By combining them, they become more powerful. Half of them go to Takuya, and half of them go to Koji. With that, I believe they turn into Emperor Greymon, and then there is Kendo Garurumon, I want to say. Okay, so it's Magna Garurumon. So with their combined effort, they are able to join together to defeat Cherubimon. Now it seems like that would be the end of that season, when all of a sudden Ice Devimon shows up and wants a fight. So there's one more. And then after that, I feel starts the weakest part of this season. You got the Lucimon saga. Now, Lucimon has two henchmen, or one is a henchman and one is a henchwoman. It depends on which version you watch. In the English dub, it's a henchman and a henchwoman. But if you watch the original Japanese, it's both henchmen and one is just really effeminate. Something I can kind of relate to, actually. Let's not get on that. So basically, from that point onward, these two henchmen are just gathering up all the data of the digital world in order to revive Lucimon, which essentially is a creature so powerful that it nearly destroyed the digital world one time. And then like a good chunk of that last chapter is really just the kids trying to stop these two knights of Lucimon and just being unsuccessful. Some stories are actually rather interesting where one, they have to try to rescue the primary village, which, like every other episode, they fail. But in a way, they're able to save all the eggs, so at least that's going for them. Probably the most interesting thing about this is that Season 4 is known as probably the most campy, but yet by the end of it, there is very little left of the digital world. It's basically like one Trailmon track that goes around the whole thing, and maybe a train station every so often. So it gets to a point where they're somehow actually able to defeat these two knights, but by that point it's too late as Lucimon has enough data to come back from the dead, and there's a pretty big epic showdown there. I nearly forgot probably the best arc of this whole season. Okay, so before the Rose Morning Star, there's a section where everybody is nearly defeated, and Takuya wishes that he could go back home. In a dreamlike trance, there's this one dark Trailmon that comes forward, and he says, I can offer you a ride back to make it so that this never happened. And in a strange turn of events, Takuya gets on. Now, this is probably, in my opinion, the best episode of this season. When Takuya comes back, he doesn't come back as a human, but he comes back as a weird hybrid Digimon thing known as Flamemon. Now what's rather interesting is that he also went back in time as well. So he's actually reliving the day where he first went to the digital world. Every so often he's trying to stop him from going. And then by the time he actually succeeds, he realizes that he needs to go back. So he's able to make the timeline stay the same when Dark Trailmon comes back again saying, you must really like your friends. You better go back. Now I'm really disappointed in this season that there isn't a whole lot of screen time in the real world. Personally, I was hoping when the two knights were gathering data for Lucimon that they would have to go into the real world and they would have to get their data because the digital world didn't have enough. And then the Digidestined would then all go back to the real world, all in these weird forms as well. And then occasionally, they'd bump into their real selves, and they'd have to make sure that they get on that train, otherwise they would cause some sort of paradox. Now there is also another plot I completely skipped over. It's actually really important. So the interesting thing is Koji is actually a twin, but he doesn't know that. The mother and the father had a really bad divorce. So the mother took Koji, and she was really overworked. She just barely was able to keep enough money on the table as well as just keep going. In fact, we see a few scenes where Koji is actually just trying to massage her so that way she could just get up and just keep going. Once again, for a kid show, that's really intense. Dad, he still had the other twin brother, known as Koichi. Now, before Koji went into the digital world, I believe he was going to buy flowers for the stepmother as a way to try to get a better relationship. And I believe Koichi, Koji's twin brother, was about to head into the city to see Koji. However, that didn't really work out because not only did Koji get the phone call, but Koichi died, actually. It's really interesting. Essentially, the last thing we ever see of Koichi is that as he's running to try to see Koji up the stairs in the elevator, he trips and he falls backwards, and then he wakes up as Duskmon. So it's weird to think that he's dead, but also alive in a way. The Digidestined are able to defeat Lucimon, and then from there, they all have to go back into the real world, where hopefully they can stop Koichi from dying. Almost seems like they're too late, as they all go into the hospital room and see Koichi's lifeless body, with that one little monitor going, But then all of a sudden, it seems like the power of all their Digivices comes together and revives Koichi. And then that's basically the end. I feel like it ended on a rather that's it sort of note. I mean, with season 1, it was kind of a tearjerker because they had to say goodbye to their newfound friends. With the season 2 ending, it was very conclusive in the idea that, okay, evil has finally been defeated, and now there's nothing but happiness and sunshine, as well as a bright future for everyone. Season 3's ending was rather similar to season 1, except more to the point of sobbing by the separation. But with season 4, it's just, okay, they defeated the evil, and they were better people because of it. The end. So that's season 4 in a nutshell. Obviously, I'm going to go a lot more in depth with it if I ever get around to doing an actual review of it. So the main thing about season 4, it's considered the campiest, but I think it's a lot of fun. I feel like if you go into this expecting another season 3, you're going to have a bad time. If you go into this expecting season 6 or season 2, depending on which one you think is the worst, you're actually going to find that this is not only really entertaining, but also has some really interesting moral questions in place, as well as some pretty dark scenes for, once again, being considered the campiest. Now, like I said, probably the biggest things I didn't like about this season was first is that the Digidestined were humans. Personally, I thought it would have been a much more interesting story if they were just the Digimon all the time in the digital world, and then they'd have to come back into the human world and figure out how to become the Digimon again in order to defeat the evil, if that actually happened. That is the second weakest thing I'd say about this season. The last arc is so boring. All that happens is that Data is being swept away, and they can do nothing about it. In fact, I even wonder why they put up a fight, because they just keep losing every time, and they don't seem to be getting any stronger until the last 5 episodes. But by that point, Lucimon is revived, and, well, it's the end of the world. They couldn't save it. This season also has a lot of filler episodes, in addition to the last arc I had. But some of them are actually really entertaining. There is one where I believe they all have to make burgers. And I love the idea that Koji and Kuya are having this competition with each other, and both of them are just awful cooks. I think Koji has this one hamburger that is seasoned with kimchi, which I've never had the stuff, but if it tastes as bad as it smells, I do not think it would be appetizing at all. And then one of them was the rainbow burger, which was all just fruit. And the other one was just simply calamari everything. Like the bun and the burger itself, it's all just squid tentacles everywhere. And then I like how Tommy makes the best burger by just simply adding a little bit of olive oil and some onions. Sometimes you can't beat the classics, I guess. Then there was this other fun episode where basically they acknowledge that the Digidestined have to eat, and so they have like no money. So they figure they'll enter this one Trailmon tournament where each of them use their Digimon forms in order to try to get their Trailmon to win. Now, one of the reasons this episode sticks out is because it's one of only like maybe 4 or 5 times Burning Greymon, which I mentioned is my favorite design, shows up in this entire season. So it's interesting to see that his power is able to help him win the Trailmon race, and thus get some money for them to get something to eat. There's also this other episode where they all go to the beach. Now, what's interesting is that on this beach, I believe the Toucanemon, I want to say, all pledge allegiance to Ranamon, which is part of the evil warrior spirit's clan, so to speak. So the main way they try to help Ranamon is to try to steal the Digidestined's Digivice. Now, how they do this is they basically say, hey, why don't you come to the beach? And then, while they're changing, they sneak into the dressing rooms and take the Digivices. Now, fun about this is the idea that Zoe is the only one to catch on to this, and so she's the only one that has a Digivice, while all the other ones are just in their swimsuits trying to figure out how to stop these people. Just remember there was also this one scene where basically they all get their clothes back and they all get their Digivices back. So then they all start to change back into their clothes while Zoe is just like, don't you want to go somewhere else? No, just go on ahead and change. There's nothing wrong with that. And then probably the last thing that also sticks out in my mind in terms of like funny or really fascinating scenes is that they go to this tribe of slugs where Grumblemon has taken all the women for some reason. Now, as a way to try to entice the Digidestined in order to get all these women back, they feed them cabbage, but it's weird cabbage because it just tastes like meat. This season is off the wall. So, would I recommend it? It's hard to say. I recommend it the same way I recommend Moonraker in the James Bond franchise. If you just want a fun time where you don't have to think a whole lot, this is the season for you. If you want something really deep, thought-provoking, and something that'll trigger some emotional response, you may get it, but you're probably just going to end up really disappointed. My personal ranking, where would I put this? As I've probably said before, Season 5 has got to be my personal favorite, followed by Season 1, there may be some partial nostalgia there, then maybe Season 3, this one, Season 4, followed by Season 6, then by Season 2. Well, Season 2 had a lot of good moments. I thought, on the whole, it was rather weak. Season 6, I feel like, is just enough of a hot mess, and it's not only really entertaining to watch, but it also has a lot of really funny moments, serious moments, and just about everything in between. And plus, it's a lot longer than most of the other seasons. So, that's Season 4. If there were any other details I missed, or any other scenes you wanted me to talk about, just feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll address them as they come. As for an actual review where I talk over real footage, that's probably going to be a while, and by that point I'll probably be Julia, but we'll see what happens. But I do fully intend to do a review of this, either as man or woman. So, until next time, keep having fun.